What's up, my friends? Welcome back to another edition of Crossing the Line podcast. A full squad today as we are back with another week's episode. We got a lot to get into. That is for my cat. You just saw him for the first time on the show.
Mr. Snowball.
So we moved. So I'm still trying to figure out what's a good setup. So right now we don't have a light. Like there's no fixture or anything. So I have Bridget bought a corner light, like a little LED stand, and I went on YouTube and I Googled lights, like 24-hour lights. So the light that you're seeing is a reflection of a pure white screen of like LED lights for 24 hours on YouTube. So
this is a direct correlation of your Google search. Thank you, Google, for Tyler's lighting.
I thought you were going to say you Googled lights and suddenly you were bumping to LED Golding.
I thought he was going to be bumping to some Kanye, but I guess he's canceled now, so I don't really know what happened.
That's all of the lights. No, he was looking for a specific.
I was looking for the light, not all of the lights.
I think he said flashlights, car lights, Google lights, all of the lights. It counts.
Let's be honest. You just didn't pay the electric bill, and that's okay. We understand.
Hey, my electric bill for August at my old apartment is like $14. It's pretty expensive.
Speaking of, what is our Wi-Fi bill collectively? Because my Wi-Fi constantly stinks. So if anybody's seeing this and is, certain people are messed up, it's probably my fault. But all of us collectively
never had a problem.
Can't say.
You know what sucks? Gas is back up to $4.
Bullshit.
What are we doing?
How dare they?
Baby. Not here in the South.
It's the goddamn government. Get your shit together.
Here comes the old man yells at clouds rant.
I will refrain.
We thought this segment would come a little bit later. But...
We have an hour-long show, and it's 4 minutes in. He's already going to scream at the screen about money and lights. So in this makeshift setup, we have a lot to get into. We're going to do some NFL. We'll break away from baseball for a little bit. We have some fantasy football to get into. We're going to do our best to not rant and rave about this team in particular because they're dead to me. And we'll do I think Jack's going to do the same with the Yankees.
No, they've been dead to me. But yeah, I think we're in a similar boat. I mean, it's like, God, I've never in my fandom for the Yankees gone into like a series like this right now. It's just like essentially it's like one of those when you get in trouble as a kid and if your parents are going to spank you. This is like pulling down your own pants and just turning around and being like, it's going to happen anyway. So just do it. That's essentially what he's walking to. And sure enough, I think Braves hung 13 on him last night, and then Severino started tonight and gave up 5.
Better than the 21 they gave up the other night. The Mets gave up to them the other night.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Braves firmly have a key to to Queens and the Bronx after this. Manhattan and Staten Island and Brooklyn had a team. They'd also probably just get that key as well.
So we have a lot to get into tonight. Guys,
at this point, honestly.
Yeah, could you just hand them and the Dodgers a trip to the NLCS and we could just call it a day?
Fair.
That's why the game's not played on paper, or that's impersonation.
Yeah, I feel like if you played the game on paper, it'd be really uncomfortable. Could you imagine trying to slide on paper?
Jesus. Yeah, I don't know. It's better than trying to slide at some of the fields I used to play on.
That's very true. But we got a lot to get into today, Mark. Mike, Jack, I apologize, Mark. I cut you off entirely. So we'll just pretend that never happened. We'll do it all coming up next right here on Crossing the Line podcast. All right, now that Mark was so rudely interrupted, I'll introduce him first. Maybe it'll make him feel a little bit better. That's Mark Fagnani, Jack Molesky, Mike Davella, myself, Tyler Zulli. Thanks again for checking us out on Crossing the Line podcast. If you've not done so before, please hit that subscribe button and, of course, drop a like on this video. And we would really appreciate it. We've got a lot to get into today. So before we go any further, though, Mark, I'm going to let you finish what you were about to say because I was very rude and cut you off.
No, I just wanted to say rock beats paper, but never. That's it. There was nothing good. It was terrible. I'm glad you cut me off, and now I had to say it. It's embarrassing.
So, Mark,
in what world does rock beat paper?
Well, obviously you haven't been to the paper factory, right?
Mark, you got a new dog this week, and I think that you two are officially starting to share brain cells. And,
honestly,
does he have it right now?
He woke me up at like 3 a.m. I haven't really gotten any sleep since. I'm very, very tired.
I was gonna say I'm glad you referred to it as it because I was like, there's clearly not much cell going around.
Just one brain cell.
It is not the dog. It is not Mark. It is the one brain cell.
The individual brain cell that's being shared between the two.
Dog.
So let's get into some. We're going to start with NFL today. We've done a lot of baseball. I'm sure we'll break into baseball. But we touched on the running back situation a lot over the offseason and how it's kind of become devalued and devoid of any kind of seriousness with Saquon Barkley and Ezekiel Elliott, and Dalvin Cook. Well, two of those names that I just mentioned now have teams and new homes. Ezekiel Elliott signs a one-year deal with the New England Patriots, and Dalvin Cook signs a one-year deal with the New York Jets. And guys, I'll be honest with you. I was looking at the Zeke news specifically, and you can touch on whichever one you'd prefer. But I was looking at the Zeke news, and I'm looking at that team, and maybe he helps out Ramondre Stevenson. Maybe that means Pierre Strong doesn't get as many touches. But I'm looking at that roster, and I still go, this team stinks. At least on the offensive side of things.
What do you mean, Ramondre Stevenson? I thought he was going to be the backup center for David Andrews. Doesn't he play center now?
Well, that's true too. They got some kind of crazy formation where he's going to be the backup center. But I look at the receiving core. I look at the tight end group. I like Mike Gesicki. I think we all like Mike Gesicki. Hunter Henry's been a guy that I thought was undervalued, but I don't think Mac Jones is all that good. I think the receiving core stinks. So you go out and spend $7 million on a backup running back. I don't quite understand.
A backup running back that already wasn't good for the last couple of years, honestly. I'm pretty sure Mike Gesicki hurt his shoulder today or yesterday, something like that I saw.
Yikes.
But they're still not a good team.
They are basically just Matthew Judon and company.
Pretty much.
I mean, I think they're a good defensive team. I mean, they're going to be competitive with some of these AFC's power offenses for a little bit. But if Mac Jones can't keep up, if this offense can't keep up, you're going to see lopsided scores. You go, wow, the defense played really poorly. And then the realization is, oh, the Bills scored 14 in the second half, and they win this game 24-7, when in reality it might have been 7-0 heading into halftime.
Yeah. I can't tell if it's Bill Belichick committing to knowing that Mac Jones isn't good and knowing that the only way they win is chew up clock and then be really good on defense, or Bill Belichick committing to what he's done for the last 20 years and just refusing to have a feature back in the offense, because that was going to be Ramondre Stevenson until Ezekiel Elliott came in. But like the only thing that Zeke does maybe better than Ramondre would be running from the 5-yard line in. But like when you look at the stats and actually break it down, their average success rate from like goal to go situations is just the same. Like Ramondre can bang bodies down low. Zeke doesn't have that burst that he used to. So, I mean, I think it's like a why not, because like you said, their roster isn't good. There wasn't anyone else out that they were going to get that was going to make them tremendously better. So I don't know, get another running back to add to the room and maybe try to just beat up on teams and win a lot of 17-14 games. Cause on paper, they're the worst team in the division, and the AFC, everyone goes to the AFC now. Apparently, like the NFC, no one wants to play in that conference anymore because everyone is just going to the AFC and making it impossible to win.
That's true. The NFC is much better than the AFC.
Yeah, right.
Obviously.
Also true. And it is his disappointment for the four of us who are all Penn State guys that Mike Gesicki just got hurt. I mean, hopefully, I don't know that he will, but hopefully he plays on Saturday, because it's going to be an exciting preseason game. We have the potential to see Trace McSorley versus Sean Clifford in the NFL. Who doesn't want that?
Quarterbacks to ever come out of college football. Absolutely, 100%.
He's closed.
I would rather watch for 4 hours this screen of lights that I put on.
You shut up.
Preseason football is stupid.
I haven't watched a preseason game, and I don't have any inclination to watch any preseason games. I'll give you like a couple highlights, and I'll watch them talk about it for 7 hours afterwards, and I'll catch 15 minutes of that talking. But outside of that, the preseason's bullshit.
When Sean Clifford is the starting quarterback for the Packers in a couple years over Jordan Love, my agenda grows stronger by the snap. And I've said for some time that Sean Clifford gets way too much disrespect from Penn State fans, which I think he will for all time. But when Sean Clifford is leading the Packers to a deep run in the playoffs in 3 years because the NFC sucks, and by that time the NFC will actually, by my calculations, only have 7 teams because a lot of them will have left from the NFC to just go play in the AFC. then Sean Clifford's going to be looked at a lot differently. But in all seriousness, I truly believe that he's going to get a shot at a starter position in like the next couple years for an NFL team, and he's going to be pretty decent.
Jack's ready for conference realignment, like the Big 25, and then the 7 teams in the NFC.
It's the Big 25, and then it's just the NFC. It's the NFC East, so it's the Cowboys, the Eagles, the team formerly known as the Redskins, and the Giants can like battle it out once again.
That's pretty much all that happens anyway. Hear me out. I got an easy question that I think there's a simple answer to, but I just want to ask it just because I just thought about it randomly. You have Trace McSorley, Sean Clifford, and Christian Hackenberg. Who are you taking?
In what
regard?
Oh, wrong game.
Keep going.
Let's be honest. We're killing
at the collegiate level, or
you got to get rid of him.
Yeah,
got it. Both levels. Are you kidding me?
Trace McSorley is the answer in college. Yeah. Trace McSorley was the best of the 3 at Penn State. Remains to be seen. I assume it's going to be Clifford in the NFL because Hackenberg was nothing, and I think
Hackenberg's been sacked more times than he's completed passes.
I'll tell you who it's not. Will Levis. Moron.
Yeah, I don't think Hackenberg fits the answer, whether it's college. And if you want to go back to high school, it's also McSorley because he won back-to-back state championships. If it's the CFL, maybe Hackenberg.
How about the USFL?
Well, in that, I'm taking McGloin.
I was going to say PJ Walker, but I like
Daryl Clark.
Hold on. If we're going NFL, PJ Walker's better than every quarterback we just named.
No, not Sean Clifford. Give it
time. He hasn't played in the NFL yet.
And he's going to be better. I'm sorry. We're saying right
what if I said he was already better than
I get it. He's not.
I don't know.
Listen, that Temple team has a piece of my soul that I had to leave at Lincoln Financial Field that day.
Oh, I was there too. I was in the Temple student section, and I had to put a Temple T-shirt on so I didn't get fucking killed walking out of the stadium.
And it was miserable.
Tyler Matakevich with another tackle.
28th TFL for the Temple defense.
Christian Hackenberg drops back. He's still dropping back. He hasn't gotten forward.
Was sacked. He sacked 10 times in that game.
Something like that was ridiculous.
That was kind of an average, though. Let's be honest.
Although I will never slander that man. Without Christian Hackenberg, Penn State's program would be nowhere near where they are right now. So, respect. I'll give that man his flowers.
Yeah, you're right. Without Saquon Barkley, they'd be nowhere near where they'd be right now.
Without Hackenberg, there wouldn't be a Saquon Barkley. I'm going to go off record and say that.
Speaking of Penn State running backs, can we talk about, not that ESPN has any credibility nowadays, but they did a ranking of the top 100 college football players. Nick Singleton was the 6th ranked running back on that list, which is just like
6th ranked running back?
6th ranked running back on the list, which is mind boggling to me. Like the only running back on that list that I would hear an argument for over him is Blake Corum, because dude's been doing it for a long time. He rushed for 1,700 yards with an injury last year. Like he was elite. I think that's an easy number 1. No one's going to argue with that. But there were 5 or 4 other running backs after Corum who were ranked ahead of Singleton. Donovan Edwards, the backup for Michigan, was ranked over Singleton.
I assume Braylon Allen probably was, right?
No, Braylon Allen was ranked behind Singleton. Will Shipley from Clemson was the 5th ranked running back on this list. This is where I have a problem, because I think Braylon Allen is probably a top 4, maybe even a top 3. Like to me, it's Corum, it's Singleton, and it's Allen are the top 3 running backs in the nation in terms of pure skill.
What's the tie between those 3 guys?
The tie between those 3.
What's the correlation between those 3? Big Ten.
Good offensive line, good offensive line, good offensive line. Which is shocking that we're saying that about Penn State, but it's true. They did get Kalen King, right? He was the number 1 ranked cornerback on the list, which I think is totally deserved. And
that is deserved, but that's something I haven't seen until that specific list, because it's been Kool-Aid McKinstry over him in every other list that I've seen, solely because the kid goes to Alabama.
PFF also put Kalen King number 1 on their list, I believe.
Are you sure?
And then it might have just been Big Ten, actually. But yeah, Olu Fashanu was ranked, I think, 16th overall, which, again, he should probably be top 20.
So let me ask you, number 1 was Caleb Williams, right?
Yes, far number 1.
I mean, at least, all right, so at least they got the top player right.
And
listen,
they got number 2 right, in my opinion, too, Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, you're probably right on that. I agree. Where was Joe Alt, the tackle from Notre Dame? Is he top 10?
Let me pull up the list right now.
I was literally getting ready to do that myself because I'm like,
because I was just like very angry at this whole Singleton. Like, not that these rankings mean shit, obviously, but when you're in the off season, and I guess it's one of those where, like, I feel like people just didn't watch the games then, because if you give Singleton or Katron Allen feature back snaps in that offense,
Brock Bowers too.
Both of them.
Okay.
Oh, was Bowers 2 over Marvin
that's
Harrison?
Not terrible.
Yeah.
I still say Marvin Harrison Jr.
Harrison 3, Harold Perkins Jr. 4,
Where
Drake
is
May
Verse?
5. Who?
Jared
Verse?
Jared
9. They have.
You want to know 6?
That was going to be a first round
6 is laughable, in my opinion.
A guy
So
who did not get in the end zone when he was the quarterback of Indiana.
Oh my God, I can't.
Michael
Penix is 6?
The 6th best player in the nation.
And this isn't just like one
nation?
person writing this. This is
Fair.
ESPN staff.
The only reason I can even understand him being in the top 10 or in the top 25 is because he's playing for Washington, and all they're going to do is throw the ball every single down of
Yeah, because they have 2 of the best receivers in college football.
Yeah, and
like between Rome and McMillan, like those 2 dudes are both going to go in the first round.
So Joe Alt is 11th, and I guess I lied on they're marking the positions weird. They have Kalen King as a cornerback. They have Kool-Aid McKinstry as a defensive back. So Kool-Aid McKinstry is ranked 12th, and then Malachi Starks for Georgia is ranked ahead of Kalen King. Those are the only 2. But I mean, some of these rankings are obscure.
How overrated did they rate Quinn Ewers?
That's a great question.
I haven't seen him yet.
Because you guys know Texas is back, right?
Texas
is back. I saw some guy from ESPN rank them 4th in his preseason rankings.
It's ridiculous.
How do we feel about Drake May?
I like Drake May.
He's
I
good.
think Drake May is going to be
talented.
I think he's going to have a really good year this year.
Best player in the nation, good?
No. Caleb Williams is the best player in the country.
Easily.
5th best player. That's what they have Drake May as.
5th? It's a little
that's fine. I would have him probably top 10. I don't know about 5 specifically, but
Quinn Ewers is not ranked in this list.
Okay. All right. Well, that's at least they're understanding certain things that Texas is not going to be back, and they're never going to be back. And I don't even know if he's going to be the starter by the end of the year.
Yeah, but again,
they have Spencer Rattler in the top 100. Are you kidding me?
Spencer Rattler put together one of the weirdest seasons I've ever seen in my life, where he was absolutely forgot how to play football for 8 weeks, and then played 4 of the greatest weeks I've ever seen.
I'll forever be a Spencer Rattler fan, and I support him in the top 100 because he more or less single-handedly is the reason why Penn State went to and won the Rose Bowl. Like, if he doesn't win those 2 games, if he doesn't beat Texas A&M and was it A&M and Clemson? Or no,
it would have had to have been Clemson.
Yeah, Texas A&M beat LSU, which we needed to happen. What was the other?
It was Tennessee, right?
Tennessee, right?
Because it was Tennessee the week after Hendon Hooker blew his knee out, right?
Yes.
And rocket attached to his arm, Joe Milton had to play. I mean, he's going to be good this year, but I don't think he was quite ready yet.
He's 76 on the list.
Not only does Michigan have Corum as the number 1 ranked running back, but apparently Donovan Edwards is the 2nd best running back in the nation.
Wow.
Other names in front of Nicholas Singleton are Quinshon Judkins from Ole Miss, who rushed for 1,500 yards last year as the feature back in that offense. And then
because he plays nobody.
I still can't
replacing Zach Evans.
I still can't believe Will Shipley is ranked ahead of Nick Singleton.
This is a weird year for running backs collegiately because there's a lot of turnover towards like production value, like because you had a lot of schools last year that produced good running backs who got drafted that were not like your blue bloods, right? Like Tulane with Tajay Spears and Chase Brown at Illinois and all of these guys that that went to the NFL in third, fourth, fifth round that put up 1,500 rushing yards. So there's going to be a lot of running back turnover. It'll be interesting to see who does separate themselves. Corum, I get. Shipley, I don't understand.
And
I don't understand.
Even Judkins from Ole Miss, like Singleton had 500 fewer yards on 120 fewer carries. 6 touchdowns on 120 fewer carries. It's insane.
You might as well just chalk this up to what it is. ESPN is not the same. It sucks, and it's never going to be good again. That's just how it is.
That's correct.
There, I said it. I'm sorry, ESPN. You can't sponsor us now.
Well, I don't want ESPN to sponsor us. They are horrible.
The worldwide leader in sports.
Let me ask you guys this off the cuff. I know we got a couple weeks till college football starts.
Wait, we prep for this show?
No, we never prep for the show. But this is
I was going to say off the cuff was implied.
This is an off the cuff question that we didn't even think about. If you had to pick right now, non-Caleb Williams to win the Heisman, who you go with?
Drake May. No, sorry, I spoke too soon. I'm going Marvin Harrison.
I like that pick actually.
I know it's off the cuff. I apologize.
Shipley, I think he's going to be good this year.
Shut up. Speaking of actually good, smart people who make lists, I went to On3's website, and their top 10 makes way more sense to me. We've got Caleb Williams 1, Drake May 2, Marvin Harrison 3, Brock Bowers 4, Jared Verse 5, Harold Perkins 6, Olu Fashanu 7, Joe Alt 8, Kool-Aid McKinstry 9, Kalen King 10.
Oh, hey.
A lot cleaner.
All first round picks next year, presumably.
Yeah. All top 15 picks.
Yeah. To answer your questions, because I feel like the only way it doesn't happen is obviously injury, which no one wants to see with Caleb Williams. Or some guy has to have like a truly magical season that leads a team that wasn't necessarily like high up in the national conversation. And not this team isn't, but I think my pick would be Jordan Travis.
You son of a bitch.
Like if he would have to put together a special season for FSU to make it to the college football playoffs. And if he does, that's the only way he would trump Caleb Williams.
I'm going to call him out and say that he is overrated.
Jordan Travis?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think I agree with you on that one. I think he's so I'm going to give you. All right, Mike, I don't mean I've derailed too much, but let me ask you. I'm going to give you two quarterbacks. You tell me, would you take Jordan Travis or these two quarterbacks?
All right.
Just because they're kind of in similar situations where they're ascending. Travis or Jaden Daniels?
Trick question. It's the same quarterback.
Yeah, I don't know about it. I'd probably take Travis. Okay. I like Jaden Daniels though.
Travis or Joe Milton?
Joe Milton.
So the reason I asked those two quarterbacks is because not that Travis wasn't the starter last year and Daniels was as well, but similar situations with teams that are expected to be good, quarterbacks who are expected to be big reasons as to why their teams are good. And in Milton's case, he's stepping in for Hendon Hooker, who was, obviously exploded in the last two seasons to be a Heisman candidate, get drafted, as early as he did. I think that there is a lot more riding on the shoulders of Joe Milton and Jaden Daniels than there is on Jordan Travis. And I think that that's going to help Jordan Travis be better throughout the course of the season.
Fair.
Now, how about Michael Penix Jr.?
Just stinks.
What if he ends up being great this year? What if we all look?
He could be because he plays he plays for probably the second best team in the Pac-12.
The Pac-12 is terrible.
He's in the Big 25 now, guys.
We're gonna play. What conference is it by midway through this season?
I'm telling you, the people they need to stop being cowards and make the Big 124, and then the other teams can play in the SEC.
I will
leave the
say,
SEC alone, and everybody else is in one.
How many FBS teams are there?
135, I think.
30,
So
yeah.
it should be the 134, and Notre Dame just has to stay an independent.
Idiots.
They're not bowl eligible.
I would be remiss to bring it up though, because again, the people that are listening care because they are people close to us. I have to bring up Penn State and expectations while we're on the topic. This on 3 list, I already read the top 10. Olu Fashanu's at 7. Kalen King's at 10. Then they have Abdul Carter at 16. They have Chop Robinson at 25. And they have Nick Singleton at 33. While that one I think is a little bit low, I think the rest are the highest I've seen in any list. And that clearly, if this list were to predict what would happen this year, that would net Penn State. If they're having 5 guys in the top 25, 6 in the top 33, then they're probably, if not a lock, pretty in strong contention for a playoff berth. What are your thoughts?
They have to do something first. They have to play Michigan and Ohio State.
No,
that's true, but Michigan and Ohio State have to play Penn State as well.
College football right now isn't going to make it, and really 2 of them probably won't because they don't like the Big Ten either.
Here's the thing with that list, Mike. If that's what the list looks like, they're 10-2, unless by end of season you can put QB number 15 in one of those spots high up on the list. Because
we know that that's not going to be the case preseason though, because it's an
right. But I'm saying like he is the key.
Correct.
He is the key that they've been waiting for. We've known this, like, even without a quarterback that good, they should have beaten Ohio State 2 more times than they have in the last 6 years. They had multiple games where they should have won, they lost. They've had Michigan on the ropes, not as many times, but still in close games where an elite quarterback would make the difference. But I think this really, like, there is no pressure until Ohio State. So Aller has really a month and a half to get up to speed. Like they don't need Aller to win any of the first games until Ohio State. But if he can be that difference maker, then it's 11-1, it's 12-0, it's college football playoff or bust. I was saying this to a couple of people beforehand. I think I wouldn't be shocked if Ohio State and Michigan were the only 2 teams to score more than 20 points against Penn State this year. I think the defense is that.
There are, of their 12 games, there are 2 games that concern me. And this is, you guys know me, I am like the biggest skeptic when it comes to Penn State football of all time because of the head coach, because of who the quarterback was over the last couple of years, because of a lot of things. Other than Ohio State and Michigan, and by the way, it would be Michigan 1, Ohio State 2 in terms of like who I think is better this year. Other than those 2 teams, your non-conference is a joke. You're playing Delaware. You're playing West Virginia, who I think stinks, is in the midst of coaching turmoil themselves.
Don't get me wrong, they can lose that game still.
And it's a night game at home, which helps big time.
There's zero chance they're going to lose that game. Mark, if they lose to West Virginia, I may
How many games
the
have
rest
we looked at and we said there's no way they're going to lose that? Like, do you remember Maryland a couple years ago?
This is the thing. Like the team now can roll consistently. That puts so much else at ease. Like if you can run the ball consistently, you're going to beat almost every single team that you're supposed to.
Here are the teams that worry me outside of the 2 big games. Iowa.
No.
Illinois. That's it.
Illinois, yes.
That's
Iowa.
it.
I'm not worried about Iowa.
No. And when I say worry, I mean I'm not going into this game thinking this is going to be a cakewalk. Indiana is not a good football team. Northwestern is in shambles because of all of the off-the-field issues they're having. They're not going to win a football game this year. Rutgers stinks. They're getting better, but they still stink. Maryland is 1 player good. Talia has been really good the last couple of years, but
turned the ball over
to compete at that level that Penn did. And then they're like we said, their non-conference is a joke. They're playing nobody. They're playing UMass. They're playing Delaware. They're playing West Virginia at home at night, like Jack mentioned. Those 2 games plus Iowa and Illinois are the only ones that would cause even the slightest concern. So even if Drew Aller is good, they're 9-3 or 10-2. If Drew Aller is great and he does things that we don't expect him to do, he looks poised, he's that guy, he's him. This is the best team James Franklin's ever had.
Yeah, and I think that the Illinois game is a really good one to bring up because it's a noon game, but it's his first road test. And it doesn't matter what conference. Like I was going to say Big Ten, like, no, going on the road in college football and winning is tough. That's why the elite are 12-0 and most everyone else has at least one, if not two losses on their card, because going on the road and winning with young kids that are juggling a lot of other things going on, like that's a tough thing to do. But the only other game I honestly think that like would have been somewhat concerning is, because it always is, it's Michigan State, except they took the one thing away from that game that could have been concerning, and that was the elements. Now that they're playing it indoors on turf, Penn State's going to put 50 on that defense, because
especially if it means something.
It's weird that every single time we play Michigan State at the end of the year, I get worried. Like every single time, it's always like it's a trap game for them every time. Because it's like you have to win it. You have to win it because there's always bowl implications and right now playoff implications possibly. But Michigan State's never bad. They haven't been like really good in a while either, but they're never bad. And anytime we play a Big Ten team like this, it just seems to get, I don't know. It's like James Franklin wants to look past the last game.
Well, I think you're right, but the reason that I think for the most part that you feel that way is because of the fact that the implications aren't college football playoff at that point. They've already lost to Ohio State. They've already lost to Michigan. They've had a slip-up game somewhere. Where if you're going into this game 11-1 or 10-1 or 11-0, if you lose that game at that point, that's on you, right? Like there's no well, like whoops, it was weather, or whoops, it was this, that, or the other thing. It's on you if you go into that game 11-0 or 10-1 and find a way to lose, especially like Jack said on neutral turf inside.
Yeah, I think it's Ford Field in Detroit. Yeah. Black Friday game. I think this is like you said, Zuli, it's, you want to be optimistic as hell, but you still have to be cautiously optimistic because like we know Aller, highly recruited, looks really good in practice, looked really good in limited gameplay last year, but like it's still a massive step to go from the guy with zero expectations to quite literally the guy where you will shape the course of the season. Like Penn State's good with Aller if he's solid 10-2. I think that's the floor. But ceiling is 12-0 national championship if Aller's that good. And really it comes down to, he seems he's poised, but is he up here as good as the physical talents are? Because if he is, I think we're talking possible national championship run. If not, it's going to be a big question mark.
The real question is, if they have a national championship run, does that mean he has a Heisman candidacy?
It probably have to some capacity.
Yeah, I imagine he'd have to have a season that warrants.
Well, I don't know, because was Stetson Bennett a Heisman candidate to you guys last year?
No,
he just had to show up big in the big games, which is, I don't think they put enough on Aller's plate in the first 4 games to build up his stats enough to, like, I think they're going to ease him into the season. You're going to see the running backs take a big load. But the thing I go back to, the thing that gives me hope about Drew Aller is not like, I mean, look,
I didn't want. I'm so sorry.
No one was going to laugh. Somebody had to be the first one to laugh. Mark was the one that did it, and it was just
the thing I go back to with Aller is not, a couple touchdown passes against Ohio. It is the second throw he ever threw in college football after Clifford went down with an injury in the third quarter against Purdue. Aller came in with no warm-ups, not expecting to play. And Tyler Warren dropped one of the prettier 20-yard balls I've seen. It was on the road. It was a throw that if you're afraid of the moment, you're not going to make. And he flipped it over a defender in front of the safety off of Tyler Warren's hands. It was a drop. It was an incompletion. But like that to me says this dude is not afraid of the moment. That was his second ever throw in a game where they could have just ran the ball 3 times. So they trusted him to make a play. He should have made the play. His tight end dropped it. But like that's the play that I go back to that gives me hope about Drew Aller.
Well, I love that, by the way, and I fully agree with you. To me, and it's all but been reported that this happened, but to me, the determining factor of why I'm confident that he's going to be good is of all these offseason reports coming through that there were certain players on Penn State that were heavily poached and pretend like other SEC schools tried to come in and offer millions of dollars for them to come and transfer to their school. And Franklin basically kind of just looked dejected at the end of the offseason. It's like, well, we got all our guys. I can't believe this is the way that it is now. But there were people coming in with big bags of money trying to use the transfer portal to get these guys to come to their schools. And it was pretty well documented that Aller was the guy they wanted to bring over. I'm sure there were several guys on the defense as well. But to me, reading the tea leaves shows me that the rest of college football thinks this kid's going to be legit from his recruitment on. And unless some major thing happens injury wise, I do think that I think they're going to be 11-1, and potentially if they can really have the perfect game against Michigan, 12-0.
But how is Aller the guy if they haven't named him the starter yet? Is that like not the biggest overreaction from Penn State?
We're waiting on you to declare your eligibility to be the starter.
It's so dumb. People are like, well, he can't be that good if he can't beat out Bo Prabula for a job. Like, no shit, dumbass. Like, he's beaten him out since the start of last year.
Do you think James Franklin thinks that people really are like, well, if I don't tell them, they're going to game plan for both quarterbacks, and that's going to psych them out?
I hope at this point James Franklin's just having fun watching the world burn around him because he hasn't named a starting quarterback, because everyone in their right mind knows it should be Aller. But I hope he's like laughing at some of these message boards and being like, these idiots actually think Bo has a chance.
I think he probably thinks it's just funny because this is how Penn State fans just are. Yeah. They're over the top. They're worried about everything. And it's like, they're just skeptics. They're like Tyler. They're skeptics. And I get it. Had a lot of things to be skeptical about, but
me? You talking about me?
Yeah.
Come on.
I'm not skeptical about anything. I don't know what you're talking about.
I will say with the way the schedule shakes out, like starting off with a night game against West Virginia, who's a big team only by name, like it's kind of like Auburn was last year. Like that was not a good Auburn team that Penn State beat, but like they still went into SEC territory and people were doubting. I'm like, it's going to be nice to hang 50 on West Virginia in a night game. And on my 17th Miller Lite of the day, I'm going to be dancing on Ohio State, Michigan's graves already.
That's a low estimate right there.
Guys.
That's a real low estimate.
Big 12sports.com put out their preseason rankings for the Big 12 back in July. Where do you think West Virginia finished out of the 14 teams?
Fourth, dead last.
14th.
So
14th. Behind three teams that are entering the Big 12 for the first time. 4 teams that are entering the Big 12 for the first time. Behind UCF.
I forgot about BYU, that.
Behind Houston. Behind Cincinnati. This is a team that is projected to finish dead last in the Big 10.
Well, that makes sense. UCF has
Penn State should slaughter this team.
I think they will. I think Penn State's going to hang. I think they're going to hang 50 in 3 of their first 4 games. I think they're definitely going to hang 50 on Delaware. They do it West Virginia, and I think they do it. Is UMass their fourth game?
So they went full Alabama. They went UMass to back end right into Ohio State.
Gotcha. So it goes Illinois, and then who's out? Oh, it's Illinois, then
Akron.
Iowa.
No,
it's Illinois, then Iowa, and then Northwestern.
Okay.
Then Northwestern. So actually, so
they're not scoring 50 on Iowa. That defense is.
They will score 50 on Northwestern.
Correct.
This is what's going to happen. You got to be smarter than this. We know how Penn State plays. We know James Franklin. They're going to win by like 3. They're going to win by like 3 in a game like against West Virginia that they should win. Like we said,
it's going to be.
They're going to beat Delaware, but they're going to let Delaware stick around for the first half. We're all going to be sitting at home going, hey, what the hell's happening right now?
Mark, don't take the Villanova game from 2 seasons ago as the litmus test for an FCS school. That Villanova team was really freaking good for FCS football that year, and Penn State played a bad game.
It feels like every year, though, we just start slow.
No, they're going to be up 21-0 after the first quarter against West Virginia. I think Aller has a touchdown, Singleton has a run, and we get a defensive score in the first quarter. Like,
do you
remember back this? And it's going to be a tie game at the half, and I'm going to hit you up and be like, "Hey, Jack, are you on 17 Miller Lights yet?" Because
you remember the Friday night game against Maryland 4 or 5 years ago where they dropped the 60 spot.
Yep,
it's going to feel like that.
Yeah,
I hope. I really do.
Then we're all going to cry ourselves to sleep when they lose one of those two inevitable games.
Nope.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I'm going to Delaware. It's going to be crazy.
This happens every year.
Mark, you name me one player on Delaware's roster, and I will give you the benefit of the doubt. Give me one player.
John Smith.
Nasir Adderley.
Look, there's probably a John Smith.
BYU.
I played it safe, boys. I played it real safe.
Delaware football roster. You guys go ahead and keep talking. I'm gonna.
You think I'm not gonna look?
I do. I have one more thing I need to say, and it's just a good feeling between the four of us, and between the three teams that we root for, football-wise: Penn State, Eagles, Dolphins. Has there ever been a better time for this group to be fans of football teams?
No, because mostly you're asking when was the last time the Dolphins had preseason expectation.
Dan Marino was still on the team at that point.
Fair enough.
Because Penn State's been pretty maybe not this level of hope, but we've had hope for a good season for the last 5 or 6 years. Eagles won a Super Bowl less than 10 years ago. But yeah, the Dolphins are now somewhat, no, I agree, because the Dolphins have never had this many expectations in my lifetime.
They have one expectation.
Yeah,
better than zero.
Yeah. Hopefully the good thing is they don't have to share that between Mark and his dog.
Yeah, I'm not thinking there's a John Smith on this team here.
I kind of looked at it and see one. I'm really upset actually.
You messed up.
It was a good guess.
I went with a Ryan O'Connor or something crazy.
Guys, I did not think this was going to be the college football preview show, but we'll take it because I thought it was good conversation right there.
Love me some college football.
Is it that time, Tyler?
I mean, unless anybody's got anything else, I think it's that time.
Special segment time.
Yeah, I don't even know who's up at this point because we've lost track of it, but I think Jack, it might be your turn.
Yeah, well, I thought this was going to be a nice segment because we said we don't prep for this show, and that is true. But we tried to prep 5 minutes before we started recording, and we were like, all right, maybe we actually didn't even mention college football, which was funny. We said we're going to talk about fantasy football. We didn't talk about fantasy football at all, but the segment was predicated off the fact that we were going to be talking fantasy football for the previous 30 minutes. So I can't think on my feet. Segment stays the same. So the question is, fantasy football season upon us. Everyone plays in at least one league here. Most have done 2+ leagues. We all love a good fantasy football draft. And having done fantasy football now for, I think, 10+ years myself, most everyone here is in the same boat. We've played with a lot of players on our team. So my question is to you guys, at this point, you've won with players, you've lost with players. I want everyone to name me that one player that you will always have a special affinity for, that you went out of your way to draft or you just loved having on your team. And then in the other vein, name that one player that you will go out of your way to avoid drafting because no matter what, he either sucks, he gets injured, or you just can't stand that person. And anyone can start. If you need time to think, I'm happy to jump in. Let's all go around and do the ones we love first, and then hate's way more fun. So let's end with that.
Fair. I'm not starting.
I am maybe because my love for college football has almost usurped my love for the NFL at this point. I'm a sucker for 15th round rookies where you're just taking shots on somebody. When we have our drafts, it often comes down to me and one other guy who look at each other. We're like, who's getting the rookie we want first? So I think that less of a player and more of a mindset of I am always enthralled by taking rookies late and just trying to see what I can get out of these guys. Again, less of a player, but I think 2 years ago I carried 6 rookies into week 1 on my roster, which is just insane, right? But and only one of them was a starter because the only one that I picked was Kyle Pitts to be a starter. But I just have this weird affinity for drafting rookies just because I love college football so much, and I think they're going to outperform whatever expectations it is in their first NFL season.
In my last 4 seasons in my family league, I've finished either first 2 times or second 2 times.
Man,
now, are you gonna be able to do that on the weeks that your dog has the brain cell?
I'm gonna let him set the lineup.
Or are you just gonna be like Patrick in SpongeBob, like, may I take your hat, sir?
I only know fine dining and breathing. But there was one guy on my team. It was a dynasty league for the last couple of years. There was one guy on my team that I drafted, and it was one of those, like, his first year. We were really like kind of unsure. He hadn't had a big breakout season yet, and he's literally carried my team to 2 championships now. His name is Derrick Henry, and I know I shouldn't keep drafting him because, like, now it's going to go downhill. But I'm probably still going to draft him because there's just like that special place in my heart that has a real problem with it. And I'm still going to take him because I know he's going to be at least decent, right? I mean, like, I got a good chance. But he single-handedly carried me to 2 championships. I mean, I had Patrick Mahomes too, so, like, not the point.
It doesn't seem like it was single-handed.
I drafted
just had the best quarterback ever.
Dude, this is the worst thing ever, by the way. My family league, we're expanding, adding a couple extra teams now. And so we're doing an expansion draft. So I've lost the greatest draft of all time. I had guys like Derrick Henry, Patrick Mahomes. Guess who my backup quarterback was? It was Lamar Jackson.
Aaron Rodgers.
It was Lamar Jackson. Literally, I had trade bait, and I had Tom Brady in, like, his good year. I literally just stacked up, and now they're going to screw me. Ridiculous.
So I will say, if you want to get an answer on that question, I guess it was probably one of the first years I ever did fantasy. So it was 2007. So I would have been 13. You know, knew a good bit, but not everybody, right? So first round comes around. I get pick 1-1, LaDainian Tomlinson. Guy just goes and scores 20 touchdowns. Come back around at 220 or 219. Tom Brady. The year he threw 50 touchdown passes. So needless to say, just with those 2 players, I won the league that year. But I got to give a shout out to my dad because he was the one that did this. I'm sitting doing the draft. I'm running out of people that I'm really familiar with. And he goes, "Yo, Tyler, it's like the 14th round." He's like, "Take this guy." I'm like, "Who is this, Dad?" He's like, "Just take him. He left a bad team. Sorry, Jack. And he's on a good team. And now he's on a good team with Tom Brady." He goes, "Take Wes Welker." I'm like, "Who is this guy?" He's like, "Just do it. It's late round. Just take him." Of course, 2007 or 8, Wes Welker, whatever it was, goes off for, a ridiculous season. So Wes Welker always has a special place in my heart.
Mike, you want to go or you want me? I mean, you know my answer already, too.
Oh, of course I do. We've talked about it at length. For me, it's tough because I have kind of my fantasy crushes in stages. Like, the first guy that I ever really was like, this is my dude, was when I got Adrian Peterson in his rookie year. And that was just so fun. Other than that, like, some of the older guys that I wanted to just shout out because I would always find myself taking them year after year. I had them on my team for at least 3 years total, maybe probably closer to 4 or 5, but like Roddy White, love the man, Marquise Colston. And when I could get my guy, Larry Fitzgerald, I was very excited. Then we move on to probably the most lucrative player for me, where I won the 2 most important championships to me. Both had Le'Veon Bell. So that was kind of my guy. And now it's become, I haven't won with him, but I've had Christian McCaffrey as my keeper for the past couple of years. So that's kind of been the evolution of, like, there's always a guy, but it hasn't been one that's like, I always end up getting this guy because it's usually, luck of the draw at that point. On the other hand, there's always been one guy above the rest that I can't stand. And it's actually somewhat funny that he signed a new deal this week because Ezekiel Elliott, the new center for the Patriots, is, as we refer to with some of our friends from Penn State, most notably, we'll give out a shout out to Thomas Hatzipovlides for this. We like to call him the double trader because not only did he go to Ohio State, but he played for the Dallas Cowboys his entire career. And if there's one thing that I can't stand, it's players from either of those teams. And he played for both of them. So I have only ever had him 1 year and he stunk. And I was really regretting from the get-go having to pick him. But it was one of the worst decisions I've ever made. And that only solidifies that decision even more. I can't stand the guy. And I will never, ever draft him again. Not that anybody would, but Brutal.
So my love pick is, I mean, if anyone doesn't like this guy outside of fantasy, then you just don't like fun. Marshawn Lynch. First year I ever played fantasy football, I had him. I came in second in the league. So next year I drafted Marshawn Lynch and I won the league. And then the next year I drafted Marshawn Lynch and I won the league again. And then the next year I drafted Marshawn Lynch and I came in second. So like, needless to say, I was like, Marshawn Lynch correlates to good fantasy football finishes. And the first 4 years in the league, not only did I have Marshawn Lynch, my running back duo was Marshawn Lynch and Frank Gore. And those guys just like the same running back in the sense they just took all the carries. They took all the goal line carries. They just ate up yards. So I've always loved Marshawn Lynch. He's my go-to dude. And I don't know if this is cheating. I came up with the segment, so it's not. But my guy I hate, someone that actually never had on my fantasy football team, and I think that shows the level of, I guess, hatred or doubt I have in this player. It's Joe Mixon. And I think up until last year, he'd like really underperformed in just about every single fantasy year relative to his expectations. But I always find myself in a draft where it's like Joe Mixon and I've never drafted Joe Mixon yet because I can never bring myself to think that he's actually as good as the selection that I was going to take him in. So Joe Mixon would be my pick for a player that's never been on my team. And if I had to pick a player that was on my team, I'd probably say David Montgomery, because what was that graphic after he came out of Ohio State, Frankenstein or something, where like they were like, he's the speed of Adrian Peterson. He's got the toughness of Derrick Henry. It was like they build the perfect.
Got the calves of Saquon.
Yeah, and it's David Montgomery, and I'm like, no, it's not. And he did help me win a championship one year, but he's also like lost me a bunch of games because I drafted him way too high. So David Montgomery's on the list.
I'm actually upset with Mike because he took mine. But I'm going to take this one step further.
You went before me.
Well, I didn't. He said we were going to give our good one first and then our bad one second.
Oh, okay.
Did you completely?
I didn't listen. Yeah, 100%. I blame the Wi-Fi because you guys keep coming in and out.
So I'm going to take it one step further. There's one thing that in every fantasy draft I never do. And, I'm really good at going into a fantasy draft, not playing bias, not being a Philly homer, not doing all that stuff. But if there's one thing I'll never do, is I will never, and I mean never, draft a goddamn Dallas Cowboy. Because I just can't get myself to root for him. I will never do it. I don't care who it is. CeeDee Lamb, fuck off. Ezekiel Elliott when he was good, I don't care.
Fuck off.
Dak Prescott as a backup quarterback, I wouldn't even think about it.
You like money?
I love money. I'm way better at not like having a Cowboy. I would feel better about losing and not having to draft the Cowboy.
I'm gonna say something that's gonna piss you guys off and piss a lot of people off, but I don't care. I've said it before. I care about making money more than I care about the Eagles.
Obviously, I've been successful, so I'm not worried about it.
So I'm
a fucking winner.
If Dak Prescott helps me win a championship, I'm gonna take that.
He won't. He won't though. He won't do it.
You mean it's a hypothetical situation? If CeeDee Lamb helps me win a championship, I'm gonna take CeeDee Lamb.
Good example.
Yeah, but I like CeeDee Lamb.
I'm like the Mr. Krabs meme. Why'd you open up a second Krusty Krab? I like money. It's me. It's my second SpongeBob reference tonight.
Why'd you open up a second location right next to the first one and name it the same thing? Money.
I like money.
Ask Waffle House. You should see what it's like down here. There's always a Waffle House next to a Waffle House.
Damn right there is. That's America.
That's just inevitably when the first one is burned down at 3 a.m. due to a fight, they can just go right next door.
No, you go to the Waffle House that you see the cook smoking outside of because you're like, that's going to be the one I want to be at.
Isn't that all of them though?
Unfortunately, you'd think that you would, but it's not. It's not always that.
Really gone downhill.
It has. Georgia's not the same.
I have one more hot take of a guy I used to love to draft, but
There's
now. What'd you say?
Nothing.
Fuck off. Antonio Brown. Rip.
Whoa, disavow. I've never drafted players with off the field issues.
He never had them until
about
recently.
Winning with Tyreek Hill, though.
Anyway,
Ray Rice was good at fantasy football too.
Oh man, I saw it coming. I felt it coming, but I wasn't sure if it was going to be said. There it was.
the player that I will never draft again, get this back to some semblance of decency, has not caught a touchdown had not caught a touchdown in the United States in his rookie season, despite the fact that he was the 4th overall pick in his rookie season. Kyle Pitts will never be on my fantasy football team again. No disrespect to Kyle Pitts. He might be a lovely human being. I don't know. I think he's a good football player too. But his team is the highest run percentage football team in the league last year. I don't think it's going to get a whole heck of a lot better with Ritter's first full season and limited weapons, even with Drake London and Kyle Pitts, especially with drafting Bijan Robinson. The Falcons have screwed me time and time again because they've basically told Kyle Pitts, like, hey, we are not going to throw you the ball in the red zone. And I drafted Kyle Pitts his rookie year. I used him as my keeper his second year. He will not be on my football team until he or the Atlanta Falcons can prove that they're able to throw the ball near or around the end zone.
Nope.
I think I took Kyle Pitts his rookie year, and I had to start him as my tight end because there was literally no other options.
I was so excited to draft Kyle Pitts. I'm like, I'm going to let Kelsey go. I'm going to let Andrews go. I'm going to let Waller go. I'm getting Kyle Pitts. He won't be on my football team.
Verbal meme. It's Kyle Pitts sitting down, and it's behind him. It's Julio Jones watching over him, and he's saying, "Your powers are now mine," because like the Falcons are just doing what they did to Julio and not throwing him like a dominant force, and we're like, but why use him between the 20s? That's
red zone, 5th round running back. What's Tyler Algier up to? Coach, I'm tired. I ran the ball 30 times today. Make it 31.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. All right. Get us out of here, Tyler.
Let's wrap this thing up. This got off the rails so fast, as it usually does.
Hey, we didn't say all the worst things we could have said. That's all I'm saying.
We'll check back in with you next week. I'm sure we got a lot more to get into. Guys, we have a lot of things to do in the next couple of weeks. We'll talk about MLB playoffs. We're going to talk about NFL season. We're going to do our predictions like always. We got a fantasy draft to do. We're going to talk about college football. We have so many things to get into over the next couple of weeks. I'm very much looking forward to it. So until that time, when we get back at it next week, Mark Fagnani, Jack Molesky, Mike Davella, myself, Tyler Zulli, thanks so much for hanging out with us this week and every week right here on Crossing the Line Podcast.